There's moments that it's more. It reminds me of my anarchist background.
Or you can't even go back and talk about the book he wrote.
Yeah.
You know, and then what I got to do sometimes is explain, which I hate in big arenas, that this is a thought police thing, and I do not like it.
Hollywood's favorite comedian, known for calling out woke culture, is back at it, stirring things up with a single tweet that has everyone buzzing. For years, he's made it super clear that he's not about to follow Hollywood's woke trends or apologizing for speaking his mind. So what do you get when this award-winning comedian and actor decides to take on the woke crowd once again? If you spend any time online, you probably already know. Tim Allen isn't one to sit quietly. He's the guy who will drop an outrageous tweet, sit back, and watch as the woke crowd gets all fired up. This definitely isn't his first go at this, and it's probably far from his last. But his latest tweet, it struck a chord like never before. People instantly went wild. Twitter mobs were absolutely losing it because Tim dared to challenge them. People couldn't believe he crossed the line like that, and they rushed to slam him for it. But come on, it's Tim Allen. He's not going to let the woke crowd tell him what to say or think. Honestly, that's exactly why he's been such a constant thorn in Hollywood's side for so long.
It's gotten to the point where literally there's part of me, a deep part of me, that just, F it, bring it on. If you want to cancel me, go ahead.
And that's definitely not the only thing that's driving Hollywood's woke crowd up the wall. Tim's been getting under the skin for years now, and he's become a total pro at it. Take, for instance, his recent Disneyland visit. While spending a fun day at the park, Tim shared this funny story that had everyone doing a double take. He overheard a 13-year-old kid question if he was Han Seol, just because he's into skillets. Classic Tim, right? Naturally, he couldn't resist sharing the moment online, poking a little fun at how over-the-top identity talk has become. And as usual, the reaction was swift and fierce. The woke crowd immediately started accusing him of being insensitive and even bullying. But here's the thing, Hollywood can't stand Tim Allen because he's the guy who asks the tough questions they'd rather pretend don't exist.
There's moments that it's more. It reminds me of my anarchist background. As Jay Leno and I talk about.
They've tried every trick in the book to cancel him, from stirring up social media outrage to taking him off the screen. But guess what? Tim doesn't play by Hollywood's rulebook. Let's take a trip back to when ABC canceled Last Man Standing. In case you didn't know, Last Man Standing was one of ABC's highest rated shows, right up there behind Modern Family.
How about Last Man Standing? Congrats on this.
No, thanks very much.
I watched it when it was on ABC.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it wasn't on ABC.
Yet they dropped it like it was nothing. Why? Because Tim Allen had the guts to portray a likable conservative on primetime TV. And in Hollywood, that's a huge no-no. As Tim put it himself, there's nothing more dangerous, especially these days, than a funny, likable conservative.
I'm not kidding. You got to be real careful around here. You get beat up. If you don't believe what everybody believes, this is like 30s Germany. I don't know what happened.
They didn't even try to hide it. Tim's politics were clearly the issue. But did he back down? No. He called it out right then and there. And here's where things get really interesting. ABC may have dropped him, thinking they'd shut him up, but Fox came in and picked up Last Man Standing's right back up, keeping the show running for Tim to connect with his fans. So while ABC tried to make an example out of him, he ended up with a whole new stage to reach his audience. And it doesn't stop there. Tim's back in action with his new show, The Santa Clauses, on Disney+. The fact that Disney invited him back says a lot. They know Tim Allen isn't going anywhere. Sure, they might try to tone him down a bit, but they can't ignore the fact that he's got a huge loyal fan base that Hollywood just can't brush off. Now, here's where things really start to heat up. The Santa Clauses. Tim's character tosses out a lighthearted line saying, "Merry Christmas to all." Oh wait, I forgot that saying Merry Christmas is suddenly problematic. And just like that, more outrage erupted. One tiny joke about saying Merry Christmas set off a meltdown across woke Twitter. People call it offensive, and some even claimed it was politically divisive. But let's be real here. It's the Santa Clauses. A little joke about Christmas should be the most expected thing in a Christmas show. But no, for the woke crowd, this was a giant red flag. Podcaster and filmmaker Scott Weinberg was one of the first to fan the flames on Twitter, posting the line with an outraged "Merry Christmas to all has suddenly become problematic" message. And of course, the internet went wild. Comments started pouring in with people tearing into Tim Allen for, wait for it, bringing right-wing politics into Christmas. One commentator even threw out the idea that Tim's Santa character must be a MAGA supporter. It's almost funny, a joke about Christmas in a Christmas show and the whole woke crowd is up in arms, losing sleep over it. To them, Tim Allen isn't just a comedian, he's a problem that needs to be canceled. But no matter how hard they try, Tim keeps coming back. He's like Hollywood's worst nightmare, a conservative comedian who simply refuses to go away. And here's the real kicker. Tim Allen just doesn't get flack from the Twitter mobs. The entire Hollywood system is practically built to shut down voices like his. As Tim puts it, the thought police are everywhere. He talked openly about how political correctness has reshaped comedy, making it a risky territory where comedians can hardly take a step further without fear of backlash. He's not shy about sharing how this affects him either. He's admitted that he's had to tweak his own material, carefully adjusting his jokes just so he doesn't get canceled by today's ultra-sensitive standards. Tim got into comedy because he was inspired by legends like Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce, comedians who pushed the limits and weren't afraid to make audiences uncomfortable. But now, every single joke is dissected, every word is put under a microscope, and for comedians like Tim, it's a nightmare. He's even joked on The View that he'd probably get canceled just for using the same words he heard from his own parents growing up.
Surprised they haven't, because I do use some provocative words, but I tell them it's words that really got from my parents. Yeah. You know, they said this stuff, and we talked about it. I can't even say it here. I can't even point to it.
Yeah.
It is an alarming thing for comedians.
That's where things are now, but Tim isn't the type to back down. If anything, he's only gotten bolder. He's openly stated he'd rather face the backlash than live in fear of being canceled, saying he refuses to sacrifice his integrity for anyone. And it's this fearless, defiant stance that has kept him in Hollywood, despite how hard they try to sideline him. Here's the thing, Tim has become the poster child for anti-cancel culture. Every time the woke crowd tries to cancel him, he ends up landing another gig, another role, and even gaining even more fans to admire his refusal to cave in. He's built a career that openly defies Hollywood's carefully crafted narratives. They might hate him for it, but they definitely can't pretend he's not there. The best part, Tim Allen isn't even fazed by their attempts to cancel him. While Twitter mobs go off, he just keeps moving forward. When ABC gave Last Man Standing the boot, Fox scooped it up without hesitation. When Disney thought they could replace him as Buzz Lightyear by bringing in Chris Evans, it didn't even put a scratch on his career. And now, he's back on Disney Plus with the Santa Clauses, delivering lines he knows he will have to Twitter in a frenzy. And let's not overlook his own stance on cancel culture itself. It's clear he's not about to let anyone silence him. In one interview, Tim openly shared that he gets the pressure, but there's no way he's going to tone down his comedy just to keep a few people happy. He's called out how society has become so eager to cancel anyone over the tiniest slip, comparing it to high school where everyone's just waiting to pounce on any misstep. To Tim, it's all ridiculous. He's even joked that he half expects people to try to cancel him just for using words he grew up hearing from his own parents. Cancel culture has gotten so extreme that comedians now feel like they have to explain every joke just to avoid it being taken out of context. And he's right, that's exactly the environment we're in, and it's why so many comedians are so afraid to say anything these days, worried it could end their careers. But Tim Allen, he is still going strong. Despite the mob, despite networks trying to blacklist him, and despite Hollywood's obsession with silencing voices that don't fit the mold, Tim Allen is proving to be non-cancelable. He's become the ultimate example of resilience in a world obsessed with canceling anyone who dares to step out of line. In the end, Tim Allen has outsmarted Hollywood's woke crowd simply by refusing to be silenced. They might try to censor him, pull his shows, or go wild on Twitter, but he's still there, still standing strong. And that's, my friends, is how Tim Allen has humiliated Hollywood in the most brilliant way by staying true to himself. So, if you're rooting for Tim Allen, or if you're tired of Hollywood's endless virtue signaling, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe for more stories of celebrities who aren't afraid to challenge woke culture.